The whole boardroom went quiet the second Belle walked in. Not normal quiet. Not the kind where people are just listening. This was the kind of silence that makes your stomach drop because you already know something bad is about to happen. I was standing at the front of the room with my laptop connected to the big screen behind me. 3 years of my life was sitting on those slides. 3 years of late nights, skipped meals, missed birthdays, and falling asleep at my desk with lab notes stuck to my cheek. This presentation was supposed to change everything. The investors were finally here. They were watching me closely. Some of them were nodding. One even smiled when I explained how my stabilization method could help deliver medicine directly where it was needed in the body. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, all the pain had been worth it. Then Belle spoke. "Sorry to interrupt, Veta," she said. But she didn't sound sorry. Not even a little. She walked in wearing a cream-colored suit that looked like it cost more than my rent. Her heels clicked against the floor like she owned the building, the company, and everyone breathing inside it. Alice, the CEO, and her father, didn't stop her. That was my first warning. Belle smiled at the investors like she was the one they had come to see all along. "There's been a change of direction," she said. "My father asked me to share something more exciting. Something with stronger market potential." My hand froze around the clicker. I looked at Alice. He didn't meet my eyes. Belle stepped beside me and reached for the control panel. With one tiny movement, she minimized my presentation. Just like that, my life's work vanished from the screen. Then her slides appeared. And my heart stopped. Not because they were good. Because they were mine. Different colors. Cleaner wording. More business buzzwords. But underneath all that polish, I saw my ideas. My late-night thoughts. My private notes. Concepts I had only written in my personal notebook. Things Belle had asked me about when she pretended she wanted to learn. As she passed close to me, she whispered, "We don't need your ideas anymore." Then louder, for the whole room, she said, "Vita's early research gave us some groundwork, but our team has developed a more innovative approach." Our team. I stood there like a ghost while she smiled and sold my work as hers. When she finished, the room clapped. One investor even stood up. I packed my laptop with shaking hands. Nobody stopped me. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody even looked guilty. At the door, I turned to Alice. "Enjoy the funding," I said softly. Then I walked out before they could see me break. But what they didn't know was this. Belle stole the presentation. She did not steal the part that made it work. And by tomorrow morning, every single one of them would realize that. I made it to my car before my hands started shaking. For a few minutes, I just sat there gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. My chest hurt. My throat felt tight. I kept replaying Belle's voice in my head. "We don't need your ideas anymore." Those words hit harder than I wanted to admit. Because my ideas were all I had. I didn't come from money. I didn't have some fancy family name opening doors for me. My mom cleaned houses my whole childhood. I did homework at kitchen tables that didn't belong to us. Sometimes we moved so much I stopped unpacking all my stuff because I knew we probably wouldn't stay long. College was scholarships, cheap noodles, and waitressing until my feet felt broken. While other students went out, I stayed in labs washing glassware, taking notes, helping professors with research that never had my name on it. So when Alice hired me 4 years ago, I thought my life had finally turned around. He told me, fresh minds create real breakthroughs. I believed him. That was my mistake. For 3 years, I worked 16-hour days building a method that could stabilize unstable compounds inside the body. In plain words, it could help medicine reach the exact place it needed to go instead of attacking everything around it. It could change cancer treatment. It could save people from pain they didn't deserve. It wasn't just a job. It was my proof that I belonged. Then Belle showed up 8 months ago with a made-up title and a corner office. Strategic Innovation Director. That was what they called her. I called her Alice's daughter. At first, I tried to be nice. I really did. She asked questions, and I answered them. She said she wanted to understand the science, so I explained it in simple terms. She stayed late near my workstation, pretending to admire my dedication. One night, she leaned against my desk and said, "You're brilliant, Veta. But you don't understand how this industry works." I laughed it off back then. Now I understood. It was never a compliment. It was a warning. When I got home, my cat Newton ran to me like he already knew the day had crushed me. I picked him up and buried my face in his fur. That was when the tears finally came. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just silent tears from a woman who had been robbed in front of a room full of powerful people. My phone buzzed. Zora, my closest friend at the lab, had texted me. What happened? Everyone's talking. Before I could answer, another message came in. Alice. We need to talk. Now. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I turned off my phone. Because Alice didn't know yet. By morning, he would realize the company had my results, my old files, and Belle's shiny little presentation. But they didn't have the real key. And when the investors asked for proof, the whole pretty lie was going to crack wide open. The next morning felt too calm. That kind of calm that comes before a storm hits and tears the roof clean off. I showered, put on my best blazer, tied my hair back, and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked tired, but not weak. That mattered. For years, I had let people mistake my quietness for fear. I had let Alice talk over me. I had let Belle smile in my face while digging through my work behind my back. I had swallowed disrespect because I thought success meant being patient. Not anymore. When I walked into the research building, the security guard looked confused. Thought you quit yesterday, he said. Not officially, I answered. Inside the lab, everyone went silent. You could feel the gossip hanging in the air. People looked at me, then quickly looked away. Nobody knew what to say. Maybe they thought I had lost everything. Maybe they thought I was crazy for walking out. Zora rushed to my station. Veta, she whispered, Alice has been losing his mind since yesterday. What did you do? I carefully placed my personal coffee mug into my bag. Nothing he didn't deserve. Her face went pale. Girl, that is not an answer. Before I could explain, Alice's voice boomed from across the lab. Veta. My office. Now. Every head turned. I walked slowly, refusing to rush just because he was angry. Alice stood in his doorway with a red face and clenched jaw. His expensive suit couldn't hide the panic in his eyes. Close the door, he snapped. I did. Then I stood there. I didn't sit. I didn't apologize. I didn't make myself small. Where is it? He demanded. I tilted my head. Where is what? Don't play games with me. The investors arrive in an hour. Belle's presentation depends on your stabilization process, and suddenly the lab can't reproduce it. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "That's strange. Yesterday, Belle said my ideas weren't needed anymore." His face darkened. "She built on your work." "Did she?" I asked. Because that wasn't mentioned in the boardroom. The door opened before he could answer. Belle rushed in, looking nothing like the confident woman from yesterday. Her hair was messy. Her face was pale. "Daddy, the team can't get it to work," she said. Then she saw me. "What is she doing here?" I smiled a little. "Collecting my things. Since you don't need my ideas anymore." Belle pointed at me. "She did something." Alice stepped closer. "Fix this, Veta. We can talk money. Promotion. Credit. Whatever you want." I looked him straight in the eye. "I can't fix what Belle claimed she developed." Belle's lips parted, but no words came out. I moved toward the door. Alice blocked me. "You're not leaving." I looked up at him calmly. "Are you physically stopping me? Because that would make this a very different kind of problem for you." For once, Alice stepped back. As I walked out, Belle shouted, "She sabotaged us." I didn't turn around. Because the truth was worse. I hadn't sabotaged them. I had simply let them stand on the stage without the floor beneath them. And in less than 1 hour, the investors were going to watch them fall. I sat in my car outside the building and watched the investors arrive. Their black cars pulled up one after another. Expensive shoes stepped onto the pavement. Sharp suits. Confident faces. People used to walking into rooms and getting exactly what they wanted. They had no idea they were walking into a disaster. I almost felt bad. Almost. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then my phone started ringing. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Same number. This time, I answered. "Veta speaking." A tight male voice came through. "This is Kieran Walsh. Lead investor." I leaned back in my seat. "Hello, Kieran. We need to talk." "I'm listening." "Not on the phone. Are you nearby?" I looked across the street at the research building. Through the glass, I could see people moving quickly. Too quickly. "Close enough," I said. "Coffee shop across the street." 5 minutes. He hung up before I could answer. I smiled. Right on schedule. When I walked into the coffee shop, Kieran was already in a corner booth, far away from other customers. Yesterday, he had looked polished and powerful. Today, his tie was crooked, and there was sweat on his forehead. That told me everything. I ordered coffee first. Slowly. Then I sat across from him. "What happened in there?" he demanded. I took a sip. "You need to be more specific." Yesterday, Belle presented a breakthrough. Today, nobody can make it work. Alice is blaming equipment. Belle is blaming technicians. Half the lab looks terrified. That sounds stressful. His eyes narrowed. 6 investors were ready to put $80 million into this company. "What?" I asked. He didn't like that. "What do you want, Veta?" There it was. The real question. "I want you to understand what you almost funded," I said. "A presentation. Not a working process." Kieran leaned forward. "Are you saying Belle lied?" I'm saying you should ask yourself one question. Who actually understood the science yesterday? He said nothing. So I continued. Belle showed you polished slides. She repeated words she barely understood. She made it sound clean, easy, ready for market. But science isn't pretty slides. Science is exact timing, failed attempts, ugly notes, and details that don't look impressive until you realize they're the reason the whole thing works. Kieran stared at me. You're the reason it worked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, yesterday, your money was about to go to people who stole the map but never learned how to read it. He sat back slowly. I pulled a plain business card from my bag. It had only one phone number on it. At 3 o'clock, call this number if you want to see the real process. He took the card. Are you starting your own company? I stood, leaving my coffee half full. At 3 o'clock, I said, you'll find out. When I got home, my phone was blowing up. Sora texted that Alice had fired a technician for saying Belle's method might be incomplete. Another message said Belle had locked herself in a conference room. Someone else said the investors had walked out. I didn't reply. I opened my laptop and prepared my files. Because Belle had stolen my spotlight. But now the spotlight was coming back. And this time, I was not sharing the stage. At 2:30, someone rang my doorbell. I checked the security camera and froze. Alice was standing outside my apartment. No assistant. No driver. No Belle. Just him. For a second, I thought about ignoring him. Honestly, I wanted to. But some moments don't go away just because you don't open the door. So I took a breath and let him in. He looked older than he had that morning. That shocked me. Alice was one of those men who always seemed polished, like money itself had dressed him. But now his shoulders were heavy, his eyes were tired, and his anger looked more like fear. May I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He looked around my small apartment. The old couch. The tiny desk covered with notebooks. Newton sitting on the bookshelf, judging him like he owed rent. The investors walked out, Alice said. I heard. You planned this. I crossed my arms. No. I quit. His mouth tightened. Belle was overexcited. She should have acknowledged your contribution. Contribution? I laughed once. Alice, I built the whole thing. He looked away. That tiny movement told me he knew. All this time, he knew. And somehow that hurt more. He sat on my couch without asking. Come back. Full credit. Bigger title. Triple salary. Stock options. Name your terms. A year ago, those words would have sounded like a dream. Now they sounded cheap. Why would I trust you? I asked. Because without you, the company loses everything. I nodded slowly. So now I matter. You always mattered. No, I said softly. My work mattered. I didn't. That landed. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then his tone changed. You can't take company research to competitors. I'm not taking company research anywhere. Then why can't we make the process work? I opened the door. Maybe because stealing results isn't the same as understanding them. His face hardened again. You think you've won? I think you should leave. He stepped toward the doorway, then turned back. You don't know how ugly this can get. I looked at him and realized something strange. I wasn't scared. Not because he couldn't hurt me. Powerful men like Alice always found ways to hurt people. But because he no longer owned my future. I know exactly how ugly it can get, I said. That's why I prepared. His phone rang. He looked at the screen, and his face changed. Whatever he saw, it wasn't good. He answered while walking out. What now? I closed the door behind him and leaned against it. My hands trembled after he left, but I didn't cry. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang. Kieran. I'm not alone, he said. The entire investment group wants to see what you have. I looked at my pack bag by the door. Send me the address. Because this was no longer about revenge. This was about proving I had never needed their permission to be brilliant. 2 hours later, I stood in a private conference room downtown. 6 investors sat around a long table, watching me like I was either their biggest risk or their biggest opportunity. Maybe both. There was no Alice here. No Belle. No stolen slides. No one waiting to cut me off mid-sentence. Just me. And my work. Before I began, I looked around the room and said, I want to be clear. What you're about to see belongs to me. Not Alice. Not Belle. Not their company. Kieran folded his hands. That is different from what we were told yesterday. I'm guessing a lot of what you were told yesterday won't survive a close look. Nobody smiled. Good. I opened my laptop and started from the beginning. Not the flashy version Belle had shown. Not the cleaned-up business school version. The real version. The failures. The adjustments. The timing. The reason one temperature shift mattered. The reason one compound had to be introduced slowly. The reason the process worked only when you understood the behavior of the molecules, not when you copied the final numbers from a report. Then I demonstrated it. Right there. Small scale, but real. The kind of proof that doesn't need big words because it speaks for itself. When the test results appeared, the room went silent. This silence felt different from yesterday. Yesterday's silence had buried me. This one lifted me. Finally, one investor named Amora spoke. This is remarkable. I swallowed the emotion rising in my throat. Thank you. Kieran leaned forward. Why couldn't Alice's lab reproduce this? Because they had the destination, I said. They didn't have the road. Amora tapped the folder I had given her. Your documents say you developed the refined process independently. Yes. Well employed by Alice. Yes, I said. Which is why I documented everything. Dates. Materials. Personal equipment. Independent counsel. Every step. Kieran opened the folder and scanned the pages. You've been preparing for this. I've been protecting myself, I corrected. There's a difference. Another investor asked, when did you realize Belle might be taking your work? When she started asking questions that didn't sound like learning, I said. Then I caught her going through my desk after hours. Kieran looked up sharply. You have proof. Security footage. That changed the room. Not loudly. But you could feel it. Nobody wanted to be connected to stolen research. Nobody wanted their money tied to a scandal that could explode in the press. Amora asked, what are you proposing? I took a breath. My company, Solara Therapeutics, is seeking funding to bring this process to market. We are small right now. For scientists. No ego. No family politics. Just people who understand what we're building. Kieran studied me. For scientists? For now. And what do you want this technology to do first? I looked around the room. Help cancer patients. Deliver treatment directly to tumors while sparing healthy tissue. That's the goal. For the first time, the investors didn't look at me like a former employee fighting her boss. They looked at me like a founder. When the meeting ended, Kieran stopped me near the door. Alice called me 6 times today, he said. I'm sure he did. He says you stole from him. I held his gaze. People usually accuse you of what they're guilty of. Kieran nodded slowly. As I walked out, my phone buzzed. Zora. Total meltdown. Belle is crying. Alice is firing everyone. What did you do? I looked at the city lights outside. For the first time in years, I smiled. Because the truth had finally entered the room. And once truth walks in, lies start looking real stupid. That night, I met Zora at a small diner across town. Not the fancy kind. The kind with sticky menus, tired waitresses, and coffee that tasted like it had survived 3 wars. Honestly, it was perfect. Zora slid into the booth looking like she had lived through a corporate earthquake. I have never seen anything like today, she said before even taking off her coat. I pushed a cup of coffee toward her. That bad? Bad? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Alice lost his mind. He threw a chair. Actually threw it. Through his office window. Was anyone hurt? No. But half the senior team resigned by lunch. The rest are pretending to work while updating their resumes. I looked down at my hands. I thought I would feel happy hearing that. I didn't. I felt tired. Zora leaned closer. The investors pulled out. All of them. I nodded. You knew that would happen. I hoped they would ask the right questions. And did they? Yes. She stared at me for a long moment. You're starting your own company. Already started. Her eyes widened. When? 3 weeks ago. Before Belle's presentation. I saw where things were going. Zora sat back, stunned. Dang, Veta. I smiled a little. Yeah. Dang. Then her face softened. You should have told me. I wanted to, I said. But the less you knew, the safer you were. She looked away, and I saw the hurt in her expression. Zora had been my friend through the worst days. She brought me food when I forgot to eat. She covered for me when migraines hit. She reminded me I was human when the lab made me feel like a machine. Keeping her in the dark had protected her. But it had also hurt her. I'm sorry, I said. She nodded slowly. I get it. I don't love it, but I get it. Then she took a sip of coffee and asked, is there room for one more scientist? My throat tightened. I had imagined this moment, but hearing it still hit me hard. You serious? Girl, after today. I am more serious than Alice's blood pressure. I laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. Yes, I said. There's room. The next morning, my lawyer called. Alice had tried to file an emergency order to stop me from using the research. The judge denied it. My documentation was too strong. He's desperate, my lawyer said. And desperate people get sloppy. By afternoon, industry blogs were buzzing. Rumors about stolen research. Investors pulling out. Board members calling emergency meetings. Belle quietly removed from her position. Everyone wanted to know what happened. But I knew the truth. A woman they thought they could erase had written her name in ink they couldn't wash away. And later that evening, when I walked into my small rented lab space and saw Sora waiting by the door with 2 boxes of equipment, I realized something. I hadn't just escaped Alice. I had started building something better. But then the security camera buzzed. Someone was outside. And when I saw Belle standing there, broken and alone, I knew the story wasn't finished yet. Belle looked nothing like the woman who had walked into that boardroom. No perfect suit. No sharp smile. No rich girl confidence wrapped in perfume and expensive fabric. Her hair was pulled back messily. Her eyes were swollen. Her blouse was wrinkled like she had been wearing it all day, maybe all night. For a few seconds, I just stared at the security screen. Every part of me wanted to leave her outside. But another part of me wanted to hear what she had to say. So I buzzed her in. She stepped into my little lab and looked around. "This is it?" she asked quietly. "This is what destroyed us?" I closed the door behind her. "No, Belle. You destroyed yourselves. This is just where I refuse to be destroyed with you." She flinched. "Good." She sat in the nearest chair without asking. For once, I didn't care. "My father won't speak to me," she said. "The board removed me this morning." I didn't answer. She looked at the floor. "Everything is gone." "What did you expect?" I asked. "You took research you didn't understand and sold it to investors like it was yours." "I didn't steal it," she said quickly. Then she stopped. Because even she heard how weak that sounded. "I adapted it," she whispered. "I made it presentable. Science is not a beauty contest, Belle." Her eyes lifted. I stepped closer to the table between us. "You thought if the slides looked good, the truth wouldn't matter. But truth always matters. Especially in science. People's lives could depend on this work someday. You don't get to fake your way through that." Her lips trembled. For the first time, I saw the girl underneath the polished act. A girl desperate to impress her father. A girl who thought stealing shine from someone else would finally make her visible. It didn't excuse her. But I understood it. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you know what would happen?" I paid attention. To what? To everything. The questions you asked. The notes you wanted. The way you watched my hands during experiments but never asked why I made certain choices. You wanted shortcuts. I noticed. Belle's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. "The investors are talking to you now, aren't they?" "Yes." "They'll never come back to my father." "Probably not." She nodded like she had expected that answer but still hated hearing it. At the door, she paused. "You planned this from the start." "No," I said. "I created options. You and Alice destroyed yours." She looked back at me. For a second, I thought she might apologize. She didn't. She just left. After the door closed, I stood in the quiet lab surrounded by equipment I had bought with my own savings. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't impressive. But it was mine. Every beaker. Every notebook. Every cheap folding chair. Mine. 48 hours ago, Belle had erased my presentation. Now her father's company was falling apart, investors were calling me, and my research was still alive. That was when my phone rang. "Kieran." The board finalized their decision, he said. They're prepared to offer $60 million in initial funding, with performance additions up to $100 million. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then he said one more thing. Alice is being removed as CEO. And just like that, the man who once made me feel invisible became the one nobody trusted anymore. The next morning, a courier delivered a package to my apartment. No return address. Just my name. I opened it at the kitchen table while Newton jumped onto the chair beside me, watching like he was my tiny security guard. Inside was a notebook. My notebook. The original lab notebook that had disappeared from my desk months earlier. The one I had searched for until my fingers cramped. The one Belle claimed she had never seen. The one Alice told me I must have misplaced because I was overworked. My hands went cold. There was a note inside. Alice's handwriting. You won. Was it worth it? I sat there for a long time. That question should have made me feel powerful. Instead, it made me feel sad. Because winning like this doesn't feel like people think it will. It doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't erase the nights you cried alone. It doesn't give back the years you spent proving yourself to people who were never planning to respect you. Was it worth it? I looked around my small apartment. The crack mark on the counter. The stack of bills near the door. The tired woman reflected in the dark kitchen window. Then I thought about my mother. How she used to come home with aching hands and still ask me what I learned that day. How she would say, "Baby, don't let this world make you small." For years, I had tried to be polite enough to be accepted. Quiet enough to be tolerated. Useful enough to be kept. But I was done being kept. That afternoon, I walked into our new expanded lab space. It still smelled like fresh paint and cardboard boxes. Zora was already there, arguing with one of the scientists about where to place the freezer. 2 more team members were unpacking equipment. When I stepped inside, they all looked up. And what I saw in their faces almost broke me. Respect. Real respect. Not the fake kind people give when they want something. Not the polite smile that disappears when the boss walks in. Real, steady, earned respect. Zora grinned. Boss lady, where do you want these samples? Boss lady. I laughed, but my eyes burned. Near the back station, I said. Then I stood in the middle of that lab and let myself feel it. This wasn't revenge because Alice lost his company. This wasn't justice because Belle was exposed. The real victory was that I was still standing. Still building. Still believing my work could help people. Kieran called later to confirm the investment paperwork. Reporters were asking questions. Industry leaders were suddenly interested in collaboration. People who ignored my emails for years now wanted meetings. Funny how the world hears you once money starts listening. But I didn't care about impressing them anymore. I cared about the patients who might one day get treatment with less pain. I cared about the scientists in my lab who deserve credit for their work. I cared about never again shrinking myself to fit inside someone else's shadow. That night, I opened Alice's note one last time. You won. Was it worth it? I picked up a pen and wrote beneath it. Yes. Then I closed the notebook and placed it on my shelf. Not as proof of what they stole. As proof of what they couldn't take. Because sometimes the best revenge is not burning someone else's world down. Sometimes it's building your own so high that the people who doubted you have to look up just to see you.